All right, good morning, Perry. We're ready for episode 15. Happy October 22nd to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, sir. How about yourself today?
Doing great, doing great. And I know before we get started today, you were sharing with me the continuation of market conditions in Austin that can only be described as low inventory, and buyers are scrambling to find things to buy, even in the fall, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So
it's very busy compared to last year.
And I know we're going to talk in the news today about the economic conditions a little bit. We're going to talk about the job market, and that's been in the news a lot, especially with the interest and the hypersensitivity to it because of what's going on with the presidential election run-up. But I mean, Texas and Austin really do have kind of a special place because unlike many parts of the country, we're going to talk about it specifically for Austin in a little bit, there's a lot of interest in coming to Austin. I talked to a buyer over the weekend whose family is going to leave Nevada, and he doesn't even have a job here yet. Once they get settled, they're going to worry about buying something, but he's planning on being here in November, and he's pretty confident he's going to stay in some temporary housing before the rest of the family follows him, that he'll have a job in time to be employed, he said, by the first of the year.
Isn't that crazy? I've never heard that before. But
go look at the unemployment rate in Nevada, and you'll know why, when we're almost half of what it is in Nevada, that somebody would do something like this. So it sounds a little outlandish. It certainly wouldn't make any sense to go the other way, where there are very places you could leave Texas and want to go and go the other way. So that's for sure. Let's jump into the news. Let me get to the slide here, and we'll get right into this jobless rate. There was an article where the Austin jobless rate dropped to 5.3%. Now, there are two sources of data in Texas, Texas Workforce Commission, and then there's other data where the Federal Reserve releases data. This was based on September data from the Federal Reserve. Look at that unemployment rate. The jobless rate is down to 5.3%. And Barry, you remember what they were arguing about, whether they thought it was valid or not, but the national rate, the most recent calculation, was 7.8%, and that's even got a lot of controversy around it because the jobless claims the week after went up significantly when everything was revised back up. So we don't really know where it is. But you can certainly see in the Austin MSA, 5.3% is a huge increase. Now, there's two things just as a caveat here. We probably have some fairly technical, economically savvy people in Austin that are watching this or listening to this if they're just listening to the audio. Education and healthcare are always a big factor when you look at the jobless rate in September. And it would probably make sense to you because there's a lot of contractors and workers that go back to work seasonally because of the school year. So you're always going to see a pretty decent strengthening, although when you look at 21,000 new jobs in September statewide, if you remember what the number was for for September for the country, when they released it in the first part of October, they only did somewhere just north of 100,000 jobs in the entire country.
Wow, 20% of it down here.
Yeah, so you're looking at about 15, 17% of the jobs were created in Texas.
Now, do you feel like these are oil and gas jobs, or do you feel like they're high technology jobs or knowledge worker jobs?
A lot of it is service industry. A lot of it is healthcare related because Texas has got a pretty robust healthcare. But then, that goes beyond that into the service industries. Education is just because the school year started, but that's not the norm for the job distribution within the markets in Texas. Now, if you look at a couple of key factors here, we already talked about the 21,000 being a huge, strong job number for Texas, but this is the lowest rate since December of 2008. If you remember, 2008 was the financial meltdown. It was when you had Bear Stearns, and then you had the other financial Wall Street firms just basically implode. It required that huge amount of stimulus to be interjected into the system in 2009. So the market in the fall of 2008, everywhere in the country, including Austin, just fell off a cliff. I mean, it was awful then. And so when you look at it, we're back where we were in 2008 from a unemployment or a jobless rate. It's a pretty significant improvement if you look at it, given the headwinds that the country has. I mean, Texas, as much as they'd like, don't operate in a vacuum as a separate entity. What this does show you is that Texas has got a pretty strong economy in and of itself, despite the fact that there are headwinds in the United States, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
So let's look at the second article, because I think this is just part and parcel with tying things down for real estate, and then we'll go to the national level with the rest of the news. But Central Texas home sales and median price have both risen in September. And there's a couple of key factors here this article goes into. First, sales are up 10%, and the median price is up by 5% on a year-over-year basis. So when you're looking at it, despite all these headwinds, sales are up and median price is up. Here's the thing that got my attention. This is the 16th straight month of year-over-year sales increases and the 8th straight month of median price increases. And it's the best we've had since 2006. So if we go back to September 2006, which was right about the peak of the market, this is the best improvement we had. Now, are our sales numbers above where they are? And if you remember from last week's podcast, you're not going to see a market that's in excess of the top until you start seeing consistent average numbers on a 12-month rolling average that are above 2,000 sales. That's sort of your easy benchmark, Barry.
That's
once
right.
we start averaging on a 12-month basis more than 2,000 sales, and we're well below that. I mean, it's not realistic given how far new construction and other engines of the real estate sales market here have gone down. They're improving, but we're a ways off from that super frothy, overheated market. Now, let's talk about the reality of what's driving the prices. I'm concerned that we're not going to see the sales number continue to ramp up, and mainly because we've got a choke point in inventory. Now, what you have, because we have hyper-local issues of inventory problems, things are selling, like the listing you talked about where you had an offer before it even went in the MLS, just with a sign in the yard. We're going to see that in multiple offers with this dramatically lower inventory. We also tend to see when you're under 6 months of inventory, and certainly when you're under 5 months of inventory, you're going to see price increases. And you in some areas, fairly substantial price increases. That actually presents two challenges. One, the Dodd-Frank financing issues that constrain lenders make the model for getting appraisals more and more difficult. And our market doesn't look like most other markets, so everything gets a second and third look because they want to know why we're above comparables when market starts to move with pricing. Doesn't mean you can't get them done, but it means that you have to be careful. You need to pick your lender carefully. You need to understand what they do from an appraisal management company. This is sort of a hat tip to what Perry and I are going to do in one of the future podcasts. May not be next week, but certainly in the next few weeks. We'll bring an expert in what's going on in the lending world to talk with us, because it's important for people who are looking to buy or sell and then repurchase to understand what's going on. Dodd-Frank completely changed the landscape for lenders. It's a complete upheaval in what's going on. So the boom that we've seen in Central Texas especially, we have 16 straight months of year-over-year sales increases. My expectation is we're going to hit a ceiling here pretty soon.
And by that, do you mean, let me give you an example of what I'm running into. I'm seeing grade A quality buyers, owner-occupied buyers, supporting and driving this growth. And I think there's a huge market of grade B plus or even A minus who either have lending issues with the type of property it is, like a condo. We've seen recent changes in the national condo docs from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And just in general, some condos don't have great loan packages available, period. Just there is no loan for it. That's without 10 or 20% down.
Well, and I think that the issue is just exactly what we just talked about, and we should probably save this great introduction to what we think it is and get somebody that really understands Dodd-Frank. And I've got a couple of people that I have some feelers out to that are national experts in this stuff that understand the issues for lenders, because this is a lender side, mortgage side issue. In other words, the playing field has been constrained where the pendulum has swung so far to the side of being overly conservative that because of Dodd-Frank, there are no incentives for the lenders to step over the line at all. So I think, Perry, that the issue is going to be right now, if you look at Austin, we're not going to have enough inventory for sales to just keep going up. I mean, you look at the trajectory of what's happened over the last 12 to 18 months with inventory. We're marching down to lower and lower inventory. And in hot markets, where you might look at Travis Heights, you might look at Central Austin, you could look at certainly Southwest, like in Circle City, which we're going to talk about today, the amount of inventory is so incredibly low that even for a normal turnover of listings, you're going to get to the point where that becomes the immediate ceiling. In other words, it's not a demand issue. It's a ceiling on inventory where there's not enough inventory for buyers that I believe we're going to see some flattening that has nothing to do with how healthy the market is. You're going to see some flattening on sales volume. And that's going to still put upward pressure on median prices because when you have a supply-demand imbalance, it's going to be an issue of not enough inventory. And when you have more buyers than listings, you tend to get multiple offers, and they tend to sell for list or sometimes over list price. But then tempering that as a ceiling is the appraisal issue. You can't just assume you can keep raising prices without starting to run into challenges. And those challenges are appraisal shortfalls. So congratulations, you put your listing on the market for $275,000. You got 7 offers. You ended up at $285,000. Doesn't mean that it's going to appraise. The lender, in the end, has the ultimate abrogation about whether or not it actually goes to closing at a specific price. Most sellers, when faced with the fact that they have an appraisal shortfall, in a lot of cases, they're not going to be incented to go to the next buyer because they're smart enough to realize this is an issue. Sometimes the buyer has gone through multiple lenders, and it happened both times on 2 different appraisals. They really get that this is a problem. So it'll be something we're going to be watching. I expect that as we enter the market, the spring market in February and March, this is going to become a bigger issue. I'm hearing more and more sellers ask about putting contingencies for being able to locate a property to purchase in their sale because they expect multiple offers, and they're going to want to demand from the buyer that they want an out if they can't find a property within a week or 2.